Welcome to the Thuringia International School podcast, Taboo Talks with
Tamara Mittelstädt
and Beate Burger.
As a mother of two now more or less grown-up sons, both graduates of TIS by the way, Tamara combines the colorful field of work of a trained pediatric nurse and now school nurse for many years with the ability to counsel our students and parents and teachers in a difficult life situation and times.
Beate is also the mother of two children, a daughter and a son, who are in their teens and preteens and are also students at TIS. As a long-time German teacher in the TIS primary school, she has actually taught all age groups and also brings with her a whole bag of additional experience as a former kindergarten teacher and after-school carer.
In this podcast, together, we will consider how we can better understand our children's needs, behavior and emotions. Our goal is not perfection, but connection and a relationship.
We'll share real-life stories, our own experiences as parents, that illustrate the pains and joys of raising children.
We want to clearly show that every child is unique and therefore every parenting journey is different.
We hope you will enjoy it. Hello everybody. Welcome to Taboo Talks.
Hi Tamara.
Hi Beate. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine. Did you have a good start in the new school year?
I had an excellent start to the new school year. I hope you too.
Yeah, it's crazy as always, but it's like we like it. Like we like it.
Great. Wonderful.
Today's topic is smartphones.
Yes.
We had a little parent information or parent meeting at the end of last school year in June. And we had a lot of different opinions coming together, but I think we had a very good outcome of the discussion.
Yes, I think it was a great discussion with the parents. Not many attended, but quite a few came and shared their ideas and also their private experiences at home with their kids at different age levels. And one of these parents is here with us today.
Yeah, we have our first very special guest here in our podcast. We welcome Mr. Chris Ferguson to us. Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing, Chris?
I'm doing well.
Thank you for joining us today.
I say I'm doing well. I have my voice is a bit off. I'm coming off a cold.
Doesn't
so
matter.
Bear with me in my responses.
You sound very good, I would say.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming us. We've invited you today because you were part of the parent evening too, and you had a clear point of view, especially regarding being a parent, having own children, but also being a teacher in a school where there is actually an existing rule, what at that point was not really used. It's like this. And I think you had a very clear standing, and this would be or will be part of our talk or discussion today. But before that, I would like to share, or we would like to share, that we have some daily observations in our daily school life.
Yeah. So it starts in lower school, kids bringing in their smartwatches or smartphones, using them during the school day, which is not allowed. Mm-hmm. That's our school policy. And like you said, we had this policy in the past already, but it happened to be like, I don't know.
Not everybody's using it.
The kids worked around this policy somehow.
Can we say it was loosely enforced?
Loosely enforced sounds very good, I would say. Yeah. And also from the teacher's perspective, I would say there are teachers using it not so loosely.
Right. So it seemed to be inconsistent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what we
Can we lay out what the rule, quote unquote,
of course,
rule was and is?
Mm-hmm.
So students up to 10th grade need to have their phones off and away through the entire day, unless they have permission from a teacher. So that was the school rule as it stood. 11th and 12th graders who were older were given
much more freedom.
More freedom, because they're more responsible, evidently. But anyway, that was the rule as it stood. But it was loosely enforced and inconsistently enforced. Enforced sounds like a strong word. However, in conversations this summer, particularly inspired by Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation.
We come to that soon. Yeah.
Right, which we'll get to, but things changed. So,
yeah, but we absolutely agree on that. And so to get a clearer picture also on regarding to the parent evening, we interviewed 2 fourth graders where we know that both of them have a smartphone and what they do with it. Remember what they told us?
Yeah, so basically they said they're using it to play games. They have like games, apps they use in their free time, or they listen to music. And in case of emergency, they are able to call their parents. But they're not doing this quite often because they're
actually
luckily not often in an emergency. Yeah.
What they do is really, and this was concerning for us too, they all have messenger apps like WhatsApp, or some even are using TikTok. And this is quite concerning for us, this unsupervised access to the World Wide Web, what we say.
And social media platforms.
Absolutely,
Right.
And what I see as a counselor in the daily problems children have with each other, or when conflicts are coming up, we see there is a lack of communication skills. They are not really having an interaction with each other. This means when I have a conflict that I have to talk things out, or how do I communicate my concern, or how do I communicate to someone how I feel, or how can I say something that lies on my shoulder? When I write this only on these platforms, I can create massive misunderstandings. And this is something that, from my perspective at least, does not go through to them.
And on the other hand, it's so easy to say or write mean things if you don't have to face the other. Because when we didn't have cell phones or smartphones when we were little, and there was a conflict and we had to say something rude or mean to someone's face, you think twice if you really do that, if there's an immediate response or reaction from the other side. And sometimes you just say, okay, whatever, I just leave it, because you don't want to be confronted with this other person you are angry about. And so all these negative responses, or like the hating that takes place, it's so easy because you don't have to face the other one and just address it to the person
directly.
And it's easy to write something. It's so much more difficult to say something.
Well, it's easy to hide behind the digital wall.
Absolutely.
Right, exactly.
And then when you have to explain yourself, it's a different situation. Exactly. Remember, we talked about it. You spoke of a behavior of an addict. No, you had an experience with a student.
I did. I had a student come to me, and because he was using the phone in classes at the end of last year, and I confiscated the phone. And the school rule was that the first 2 times a phone is confiscated because a student is using the phone without permission, that it goes to the school office. On the 3rd time it happens, the parents have to come pick it up. Anyway, so it was his first time, but it was supposed to go to the school office, and he came to me begging. I said, "You're going to have to," and he started crying. And I said, "Well, I'm sorry. Here's what I'll do. I see you're very upset. What I'll do is I'll keep the phone here. I'm supposed to go to the office. I'll keep the phone here, and you need to come to me at the end of the day." And he said, "Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you." When he came back at the end of the day, and he had a smile on his face. He's happy to be reunited with his phone. And before he left, I said, "Well, what is it? Why were you so upset when I confiscated your phone?" And he said that he doesn't feel the same when he doesn't have his phone And he paused and he said, it's almost as if I feel I'm afraid. And I said, why? And he couldn't really answer the question, but he said he feels like he needs it. And that, to me, he was describing...
like an addiction.
Right, exactly. He was describing his own... It seems like a heavy word, addiction, but it sounds like the symptoms of addiction.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Absolute. So, I mean, we have this one side. We have a school rule, but it's not taken very serious, or it was not taken very serious, to be honest, in the last school year. Neither from the students nor from some adults or teachers here or staff members. This has changed, I have to say. Yeah, I think people are more aware of the risks. Yeah, the risks that are coming out of the use of smartphones or the unsupervised use of smartphones. But we even learned in the parent evening that supervision is very difficult. Yeah.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, the technology has, in the last 12 years, Jonathan Haidt focuses on 2011, 2012, so 12, 13 years. It's just taken off. I mean, what was the percentage? Teens in Germany in 2011, 25% of teens had smartphones, which is a lot. From the smartphone came out in 2007. You know, that was a process. But now it's somewhere in the mid-90s, 95% roughly. Of teens have smartphones. I mean, it's just, but that technology has moved faster than we've had an ability to educate ourselves or build norms around, right? As schools, as families, as cultures and societies, right?
So you mean we especially invited you because you have a very clear opinion, and maybe I really like it, and in some point of view, maybe a very strict opinion about this.
From some points of view.
Yeah, but it's good, I would say. What you've mentioned the book, The Anxious Generation, already. What led you to read this book and be so convinced about what the author has written or has stated?
Well, first of all, I have a smartphone as well. My wife and I got our first smartphones in 2013, just before our boys were born, because we thought it would be better to help us communicate with each other and also communicate with family and take pictures and videos and things like that. Yeah. So anyway, I have one as well. And what was it that led me to The Anxious Generation? Well, this has been since, for whatever reason, around that time, 2011, 2012, when I started seeing more smartphone use on the streets and out in public, and seeing people driving in cars on their phones when they shouldn't be, or the passenger in the car sitting on his or her phone while their partner's driving, nobody's talking, and so it kicked off
a lack of social.
For me, how it started a bit of a, I suppose, hobby in teaching myself about what was going on. I mean, I've said in recent years that if I could go back and study at university, I would go back and study communication and technology and social media. And I think it's fascinating what's gone on around the world in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, how quick it's developed.
Oh, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And so, The Anxious Generation is just one of many books, but Jonathan Haidt is a top researcher, and this book just lays it out. It really lays it out, and it also shows in detail. And you don't have to just read the book. There's a website, and you can see the charts and graphs of what's gone on since 2012. So we're talking about 12 years, and since 2012, the levels of anxiety and depression have just skyrocketed, particularly among teens. Right. And boys and girls are different as well, according to the book, in what's affecting them as far as that goes. But, so it was a process. I mean, I remember in 2011, 2012, I read The Shallows by Nicholas Carr. The Shallows, What the Internet is Doing to Our Brains, which is a fascinating book. I'm not here to plug Nicholas Carr's work, but anyway, I thought it was incredible. And then there's another book which has a great title, Alone Together, written by an MIT professor by the name of Cheryl Turkle, which is exactly that. It lays out, where we are now as can I just say, global society. I mean, people are together, but they're alone because they're distracted and they're not there in the present moment.
No, they don't learn the communication skills anymore.
Yeah, and so I mean, since that time, it's a path, right? So yeah.
I think the ancient generation is far more famous, I would say.
Yeah,
a lot of people have read it. I haven't read it
yeah.
completely, just parts of it for now. It's written in English, and it's a bit harder for me to read, to be honest.
Yeah.
But it explains the risks, a lot, and also gives a lot of facts. It's very resource based too.
And it's a hard pushback on the, to use the German word, the zeitgeist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you mentioned you see people being together and not talking to each other because one is on the cell phone. That's what you see all the time. Even if you go to a restaurant, then they sit, like families sit together at the same table, but they're not talking to each other because the kids are playing on the cell phone or smartphone or tablet, and even the parents are just sitting next to each other, both using their smartphones, checking emails, messages, TikTok, whatever it is, and no one is talking to one another.
I hope we can talk about that later on, parents and what parents can do. There's an
this is part of the
in
problem,
right.
really. I mean, we can bring this up now because we expect from the students to have a far more responsible way on using a smartphone, but it all lies there that adults have to act as role models. They see us, and that's not what we or that a lot of adults are doing. When you see, like Beate just said, you go in a restaurant and you see nobody's talking to each other. They all have the phones. Even the little ones get the phone in their hand to be quiet, maybe, or something. This is not what we want, and they don't learn it that way. This is a big problem. Right. What we see is the parents. In a school, let's say it like this. In a school, we see the parents buy a smartphone for whatever reason, different reasons. But what they do not do is take over the responsibility. I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of them are not taking over the responsibility to teach the children how to use the device in a responsible way. Probably they don't know by themselves. That's one option. Or they just let it go. We have another topic where kids are not allowed to go to school by themselves, but they're exposed to the internet without any supervision.
Well, that's one of the topics.
Big thing.
Right, that's one of the topics that he covers well in the book. This idea of we're overprotecting in the real world, right? Even in a city like the one we live in Weimar. Well, some parents are perfectly fine with it, and it's very much a German thing that young people are given more independence. It's different in places like the States and in the UK, of course, two places that I've lived. But at the same time, we're overprotecting, and it seems to be going more that way. We're overprotecting in the real world, and we're underprotecting in the online world. And the thing is, it's a supercomputer. You have literally a supercomputer in your hand.
Absolutely.
I mean, the technology in that little device would have filled a room, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, I don't know. But it's just we need to let go of the reins in the real world. Let the kids play and be kids and build connections with other kids, real connections in the real world and experiences, and start protecting more in the online world. I mean, the tech companies have gotten what they want.
Yeah,
we have just taken the bait, hook, line, and sinker, right? And they're just. I mean, these companies. I mean, there are several tech companies that are valued over $1 trillion market capitalization these days, and it's just incredible. And they push back. They push back in the States. They push back around the world regarding controls and regulation on protecting children. There's actually there was news last week about something going through the House of Representatives, a bill in the House of Representatives that is for child protection online that would improve that. Yeah.
Yeah. It would be easier if the apps would be already safe for kids instead of parents have to make them safe for their kids.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think so when the tech companies see that, you already start to see news coming out from them, or some news release saying how they have this now. What was it? I saw on Instagram, teen Instagram, that has more controls or whatever it is. So it would take regulation. It would take the government pushing back, or governments pushing back, perhaps for that to really get them to change their behavior. Yeah. Because if we leave it as it stands, then they're happy.
Yeah, of course.
And if we talk about that, a lot of we're talking about California, the Silicon Valley, those leaders at the tech companies. I mean, this is well known that they send their kids to schools that don't use technology. They put controls on it. They don't give their kids devices until they're older because they know what it does.
Yeah.
And at the same time, they go to work and they have no qualms at work to let us just, do our thing.
We discussed that on the parent evening too,
Yeah.
right? The companies have departments who just work out how to create these apps or these programs to make them addictive for teenagers.
Right.
Yeah, and this is cruel. This is so...
That's a money-making system.
Absolutely.
The bottomless scroll, those TikTok videos, you can just keep going. You could literally just sit there all day. It's like the film The Matrix come to life in a way. It's just
my kids are already a bit older, and I asked them about these TikToks stuff because I'm not so used in that things. But they say, for example, both of them didn't use TikTok anymore when they were preparing for the exams because it's addictive. They say you watch one video, then you watch the other video and another video. And for the younger kids, they tell us, we watch this and we have to watch this because when we don't watch that, we can't talk to the others about it. We don't know who is who. So it's kind of a pressure, like it's said in the book too, peer pressure, a big topic that exists there.
And I think the other thing is like you watch the one thing and then the next comes up and the next and the next and the next, and it will never stop unless you turn off your smartphone. And the problem is, even if you start with cute puppy videos or whatever, it doesn't necessarily mean that you stay in this cute area with only baby animals or whatever. You can end up in a completely different section all of a sudden.
Exactly.
That's absolutely age inappropriate. And we had that with YouTube. The kids were watching like YouTube shorts, starting with something really cute and funny, and all of a sudden it was like
a porn or
adult stuff.
My niece had that too. I talked to you about it.
Right. So we call that the rabbit hole, going down the rabbit hole. And a rabbit warren has many tunnels, and you could end up getting into a place that you have a hard time finding your way out of. And also, if you watch enough of those videos that pop up, then the algorithm starts to build itself around that, and you're seeing more and more and more of that. Right.
But this makes it so serious, and this is what I say when I mean parents have a responsibility, still have a responsibility to teach the right use, to supervise that, even they must do it, even if the kids or the teens don't like it. It's for safety reasons. And what we have experienced here, especially in the end of lower school but also middle school, that sometimes they tend to leave the responsibility to us. So they say, there is trouble, these kids have a conflict with each other, all started via WhatsApp, do something about it. We should do lessons, and that's what we do, lessons about communication, about the risks of cyber bullying, for example, and so on. But you as a parent have a responsibility too. You have to teach them. If you allow this, you have to teach them things. And that some parents are actually very helpless. And I think there is a chapter in the book too about it. You said that can parents do something?
What can parents do? So you mentioned role modeling, and that it should start with that. So basically, follow what I'm doing they don't have to say much. It's just this is how I'm acting. When we're together, I'm here with you. I'm not on my device.
Yeah.
Right. We are present together.
I look in your eyes and talk to you.
Exactly. Just being present for your kid. I mean, we've all done it, but you see it all the time. You pass playgrounds and there's a parent or even both parents, scrolling away and the kid's playing, and you're missing that time with your kid. But more specifically, there are things you can do. You can set up as your child gets older. And by the way, if we talk about age, and we will go back, I'm sure, to the Anxious Generation, but the recommendation coming from Jonathan Haidt and those researchers is that children shouldn't have a cell phone until they're 14, and no social media until 16. And I'm not making those numbers up. That's coming from top researchers in psychology and.
But it makes sense.
Sociology.
It absolutely
because
makes sense.
It gives them the time to learn the basic skills of communication and being with others and socialize before they enter the world of smartphones and messengers and whatever it is. And that goes back to what we said at the beginning. It's so easy to write something mean to someone else instead of
telling
the person into his or her face.
Behaving sort of impulsively, right? It's just something that teenagers do, right? I just read this in the notes that we know that the frontal cortex isn't developed until the 20s. For some young people, 25 years old. But the thing is, that a 16-year-old is far more capable of handling social media than a 12-year-old, let's say. Yeah. And we know this. We have students at our school. There are students all over the world, and I can say students, children, right, interchangeably because I'm a teacher. But kids that are 8, 9, 10 years old that are on social media with no adult restraint. So can we go back to the what can parents do?
Of course.
So being there for your child, right, being present. You drop the phone. Setting up rules, quote unquote rules at home where, dinners, the phone stays out of the dining room, right? We have, movie time together or game night together. When we're out, we go on a trip. We're not all sitting on our devices. We're communicating. Maybe that's harder to control, but also regarding sleep and the need that teenagers have for sleep, right? That has to be modeled as well. So adults aren't spending, their nights on their devices either. The phones are in the living room, so possibly, let's say a family of four. If all four have phones, we're talking about two teenage children and the married couple. The phones stay in the living room. Or unmarried couple, the phones stay in the living room. Yeah. Nobody sleeps with their phones next to their heads. Because what does a teenager do with the phone next to their bed? Even if the phone is turned off, the fact that it's there has some psychological effect. The phone should be off. But I need my alarm. Well, we're going to get you. We're going to get you an analog alarm,
a simple alarm clock.
Right. There are solutions to that. So the tech stays outside of the bedroom because when the teen goes to sleep, the last thing they do is they check their social media. They're upset because they didn't get the response. They see the double blue check on WhatsApp from their friend, but they didn't get a response, so they still love me.
Yeah.
And then the next morning, the first thing they do is pick up the phone and see, did they respond? I don't know. So the first thing we do in the morning should not be looking at our phones, and the last thing should not be looking at our phones. And then we wake up at 3 in the morning and we're tempted to use it at that time too. And then we're up for 2 hours and we didn't get the 8 hours we need, right?
And it's absolutely proved how bad this is for your sleep. Right. Even when you have anyway problems falling asleep, having a device in your room is the worst thing you can do. Yeah.
Better use a book.
Use a book or have a nice cup of tea and go back to sleep. But don't use your device.
It's very distracting because one leads to the other.
And to be honest, we know this by ourselves. Yeah, it's easy to get in that trap. Very easy to have that next to you and just have a short look.
Exactly.
I agree.
Can I say one thing on that though? I listened to Trevor Noah podcast recently, and he was talking about phone shaming.
phone shaming.
Phone shaming. It's interesting. It's I can be critical regarding how we're using them. I have a smartphone too, and I'm not immune to using it in ways that I probably shouldn't. However, when I'm out and about, I find myself looking around and judging. And in that Trevor Noah podcast, they talk about how that maybe isn't really the best way to approach it. I mean, you do get tired of seeing people just, hunched over. But at the same time, we don't know what they're doing. They could be writing poetry. They could be listening to a wonderful podcast. They could be learning whatever it is. So we also need to try to not come at this from a judgmental standpoint. And I think I struggle with that because you've heard me, and like you say, I have an opinion on it.
But this is why we have you here. I mean, this is one point that I would like to bring up. There are also positive sides of using the internet, of course.
It's a tool.
Absolutely.
They're tools, right?
I mean, we are here in the school. We're using it on a daily basis.
Right.
We use it even in lower school, with certain activities. Middle and upper school, it's a daily tool that we are using. So I have problems I don't know actually the English word, I try to find it out, not to devilize it, make a devil out of it.
Demonize it.
Demonize it sounds even better.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So to demonize that completely. Mm-hmm. To say, okay, no smartphones at all. Mm-hmm. Or no, we're not only talking about smartphones then, or no internet access at all. So this is, I think, not the right way, and I guess you agree. We have to find the right age. Mm-hmm. We have to find the right way to teach it, and we have to set up rules. I absolutely agree with that as parents, but also in a school. Right. To say, okay, as parents, when you say there are no phones while we eat together. There are no phones in the night or so. These are two simple rules. So when you have to set them through, I think this is already something you can do easily.
Right. Every family is different too, and you have to figure it out for yourself what works for your family.
Yeah, and you can.
But I think in a nutshell, it's being present. If you feel, as the adult, the parent, that you're not present, looking at your child, communicating. If you feel that, then you tell yourself, well, we need to do something different here, right? I think being present is the thing, and whatever you need to do to make that happen in your particular household.
Yeah. So I read another article. It was in the Journal of Educational Sciences. It was a similar topic. The question was actually, if we do not allow mobile phones in schools anymore, does that have any effect on the social well-being of students and on the achievements? And actually it has, they said in the article. Yeah,
it has.
Yeah, a positive effect when you do not allow smartphones in school.
Right.
Yeah. However,
I've seen press releases from tech companies saying it particularly in lower income areas, and this is focusing on the United States, that they, when you put parameters on the use of cell phones, that those communities suffer, which is complete propaganda from the tech companies, by the way. That's a good. So can I share? We talked about the rule at school and at our school, and how it's basically the same room this year. What's changed between last year and this year is that the message was stronger at the beginning of the year, and it was repeated, and teachers have been consistent. And I thought that we would begin the year. I actually got a stack of sticky notes thinking that I would be confiscating phones after warning students, confiscating phones, writing their names on them, taking them down to the office. I haven't confiscated a single phone. I haven't needed to. And I honestly believe that the students are relieved. It's a release of tension, the pressure of having to be online and having to communicate with your friend and sneak it, because they sent me a message from science class. I'm in English class, and I need to respond and sneak it under the table. If nobody's on the phone, then the pressure valve is released. And I've seen students in the mornings during homeroom, they seem happier. They're communicating with each other. It seems to be a happier, more connected place.
Yeah.
Maybe it could be just me, but I'll tell you, I haven't had to deal with the phone thing, and I don't know. I think the students are happy to have this as a refuge. And I think that's the way that the school should be, a refuge from it. There's enough time out there. There's enough time once you leave these gates, or before you enter the gates, to use the phones. And we're within school. You've got your laptop. We're using technology anyway.
I mean, we have that. This was part of this article too. That best case would be a balanced situation. Yeah, having a clear rule in a school. For example, like we said, up to grade 10. No phone use, and this rule has to be enforced very strictly. Or everybody needs to be on the same page there. Yeah, and giving maybe a few, like 11th or 12th graders, that they have a bit more freedom to do so. It's like a privilege that you reach to a certain point, but to do not demonize, the whole World Wide Web completely.
Right.
And use it as a positive tool, also accessible over a phone, but not during school time.
But
Well, I mean, I would have a hard time doing what I'm doing without the internet.
I couldn't do it, to be honest. Even the counseling part is connected to programs and so on. So
I think it's more about the right use of the tools you have and the internet. And as long as the adults don't know how to use all of these things in a good way, it's hard to teach the kids to use all these online tools in the correct way, or in a good way that it helps learning or practicing certain things. So I think not only be a role model as an adult, using the smartphone only when it's really necessary, instead of that's my hobby and that's what I do all day long. I don't care about my family and my kids or everything else because I'm busy at my smartphone. But also knowing what tools are out there in the World Wide Web and how to use them and integrate those ones in a good way into your teaching. I think that's a good way to deal with this and make exceptions from like the rules. But
and be clear about the risks.
And be clear about the risk and talk about this and like open communication. And even if the students like ask, can I listen to some music using my own device, like my smartphone, it's a no. Yeah, I mean, it's because they have headphones. They don't get what everyone else is saying in the classroom. Maybe they miss out a really good conversation or a good discussion because they're busy listening to their music. And I mean, I like had one student walking down the stairs and I said something and the student didn't even react. And then I realized
headphones.
The students wearing AirPods.
In-ears.
Yeah, and I couldn't see them. And then like I tapped on the shoulder and said, excuse me. Yeah, and then no headphones or AirPods or whatever. You're still in school. You're not allowed to listen to music or just like cancel. How do you say that? Like be by yourself listening and like,
you're not taking part. Shut down.
Shut out like everyone else.
That's something perhaps we need to tighten up and all agree on. Particularly in the upper school, agree on whether that's okay or not if students listen to music. Because I've noticed more and more over the last few years, it's really hit me how teens, people in their early 20s, walking around cities or on bikes with their headphones on. Yeah. Right, literally.
It's dangerous.
Yeah, it's absolutely dangerous. You don't hear. You're focusing on whatever you're listening to, and you're not hearing what's going on around you. I mean, you need to be aware.
But sometimes, even in a car, when we have a long car ride, and I listen to a podcast that comes from my mobile phone and is in the car radio, then I feel distracted from the traffic. Sometimes it's really dangerous.
Right.
So, I think we all agree on that. How do we say it? Collaboration is needed from parents, from school, students themselves too. We cannot leave them out, because we know we use the internet. Smartphones are used too, but there need to be rules, strict rules, clear rules, And it's not that one system like the school has the whole responsibility. No. It's a shared responsibility where I would still say the higher part lies on the shoulders of the parents.
They are the ones buying the smartphone.
And they should be the first role models the kids see.
Yeah.
Right, but also it should be a partnership, right?
Definitely,
the teachers and the parents.
It must be. It must also be a transparent, open partnership where we speak about problems or we see things are coming up, and but also that there are options. Sometimes parents are helpless. I mean, we heard that in the parent evening too. That some parents are just helpless. They don't know exactly what to do, or they say kids are so smart. When I have a kind of supervision system in my phone, they just check it out, and they know how to go over that.
It is unfortunate. There are some parents that are living with regret. They realized, I bought my son or daughter a smartphone, and they were too young.
Yeah,
and it's too late now.
Yeah, and they try to find excuses or
the
reasons.
cat's out of the bag, as we say, in a way, right?
Yeah, same in German.
Right. Yeah.
But there are options for parents. Yeah, there are good books, as you have one. There are good meetings you can take part online. There is one you will take part too, right? There are really good web pages. ClickSafe, for example, is a really good one where you get tips as a parent, actually, how to communicate with your child about the risks, about the right use. Right. And then we come back to our puberty topic, remember? That you have to be aware that there will be conflicts with your teenager about that.
But maybe start with the question, why do you think your child needs a smartphone?
For yourself, right.
And maybe that would be like the first step for me. What is the reason or why does my child really need, or does my child really need a smartphone? What's my child going to do with this? Because, I mean, our children, they have a smartphone and they got them to listen to their stories because not all stories were available on CDs or even cassettes. It's like a mystery to them. And to give them access to kids' stories and music they wanted to listen to, we decided to get them a smartphone so they could use it. But it's like a whole system, so we all have the same smartphone at home and they are all connected to each other. And my husband made them like safe for them. But like you said, if they're clever enough, they can like sneak around the child protection things. And if they know the code, then it's the easiest way, anyways. But we check them once in a while, so we can see what apps they used, how long they used it, when they used it, and they can't just upload a new app without permission from our side.
I mean, this is already something. A lot of parents don't even have that.
Yeah, but the reason why we got them was like they wanted like the music and kids' stories reason. That was the main focus for us. And our daughter started to go to the city center by herself, and she's going by bike to her sports training and whatever. And for her to feel safe, that in whatever kind of circumstances she finds herself, she's able to call us and get help. That was another point for us. But she was only allowed to use the smartphone at home. She wasn't allowed to bring it to school.
That's one point too. Parents can make sure that kids don't bring the smartphones to school.
Well, it's included in this book. So I'm sitting here looking at the anxious generation. The parents will push back, on a school that bans phones completely. Well, what if I need to get in touch with my child in an emergency? That tends to be the response.
But we talked about that, huh?
Yeah.
We talked about that, the possibility of having another phone, not a smartphone.
Right, exactly.
This is the reason, or you can always call the school office.
As parents have done since the phone was invented, probably. The first schools had the first phones. Right? Yeah.
But this doesn't really count for several people as a reason for not buying or not giving your child a smartphone.
Well, this thing about wanting to keep up with, the Joneses, and kids are not immune to that either, right? They know that their friends have phones, so they'll perhaps ask their parents, and can I have a phone? Can I have a phone? Mm-hmm. Our boys haven't asked for one because it's been established that they wouldn't get one until they were
for them.
older. It's clear, but if the other kids have phones, and that's why the parents need to come together, especially the younger parents, and just say no, and follow the advice that we're seeing from experts now. They're saying 14 is the age. If you're away from your child and your child is at school, well, call the school office. Mm-hmm. We'll get in touch with your child. Mm-hmm. Come, whatever. Send an email, whatever it is. But or an old school cell phone.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
But if the phones are off, the school rule, right, is the phones are off and they're in their backpacks. Then how do you reach your child anyway? The phone is off and it's in their backpack. That's the school rule. So that has to come together. Parents have to realize, oh, wait a minute. Well, my child can't use the phone, mm-hmm. so there's no way for me to contact them mm-hmm. anyway. So the only way for me to do that is to call the school office.
Yeah.
So the parents need to be on board on helping us to
absolutely
enforce that rule. I hate to use the word enforce, but to come together consistently as adults in these buildings to.
But this is part of it, and
make it happen.
Several parents are contacting their children over the day via
mm-hmm.
WhatsApp. Yeah, it happens every day. Not as much anymore now. Yeah, but I saw in the past school year we saw this on a daily basis.
I've seen it. I haven't seen it this year.
I just wrote a message. Yeah. She knows she has to come down. I just texted her. No, she just texted me, I'm sick.
But I have one more question, because you said your boys know that they won't get a smartphone until they're 14. Or a cell phone or whatever.
We might try to push that back to 16, by the way. Yeah.
Do you have the feeling that they feel left out from their peers because they don't have a cell phone, smartphone?
Okay, so we're focusing on smartphones, but the boys got an iPad almost 2 years ago, and they've used it, and now they're playing games, and they play with their friends, and they communicate, and they message their friends. To be honest, I wish that wouldn't have happened, but it is what it is. And so there is communication there. My wife is extremely social as well, so she communicates with some mothers and sets up times where they can meet in the city and things like that. But, yeah, I mean, within their class, most students in that 6th grade class, most students have smartphones.
But they don't all use WhatsApp.
They don't. They're messaging, I guess we call it DM, right, on... Yeah, whatever it is, the messenger. Yeah.
But this comes, actually I had the same question from the counseling side, right. That kids feel probably excluded from the social group in school when they don't have a smartphone.
Exactly.
And this brings us back to the beginning and saying,
right.
Okay, addiction, pressure, feeling left outside because the communication skills they should have are not there.
Well, as
or
they
just
get through
not developed in the right way.
Through the middle school, all they want is to be,
friends.
accepted. What is the note I have here? It is, where is it?
It's very interesting. I think we are actually all on the same page, and this is what we have experienced on this parent evening in June too. We all want our kids to be safe. We all want them to learn a responsible use of this device, that they know about the advantages, but also about the risks and disadvantages, but that we, as a community, parents, teachers, children, we all need to work together. And if one part is not in the boat, it doesn't really work. We can't change the industry or the technology companies or so, but we can do small steps, or small things here on the base. And I think
the foundation, right? We have to set the foundation here at the school and set the foundation in the homes of this community, and that's what it's all about. The idea of the community as well.
Yeah.
And the students are going to feel more connected to the community if they aren't doing it or doing it in whatever way they do it through some device and without any controls. So I found this note here. So, as students go through middle school, and this is coming right out of the book, they all they want, and we see this, all they want is to be connected to their friends.
Social.
Social. So they call it conformist bias in the book. Do what everyone else is doing, or prestige bias. Copy those that they look up to, right? And if those that you look up to are the cool kids, right, all have phones, then, well, you're going to be asking your parents for one if they haven't bought you one already.
But this brings us back then to other topics like building up self-confidence without following these things. Yeah. And this is part of the school again, but also part of your parents, or part of the parents' work as being a role model for them, acting confident in certain situations.
Can I read
of course
some recommendations about exposing kids to the real world, getting them away from the screens? And this is coming right out of the book. So this book's written by an American. I think the target audience is mostly, the United States, but I think German parents tend to give their children more independence, go on more camping trips, this kind of thing. So number one, increase their mobility. Let teens master the transportation modes that make sense for where they live: bicycles, buses, subways, trains, whatever. Give them more independence at an earlier age, and that in a city like Weimar,
perfect.
Absolutely, it's a great city for that. Rely more on your teen at home. Teens can cook, clean, run errands on a bicycle or public transport. So go shopping, do the dishes, do things that need to be done. Head to the pharmacy or whatever it is, right? Give them tasks. So starting at 11, 12, 13.
Responsibilities too.
So preteen even. Encourage your teen to find a part-time job.
Yes.
Or chores around the house, right?
Yeah.
Beyond just do the dishes. Wait, this is your chore. I used to have to clean the pool. I had a pool when we lived in Florida.
So
I have to clean the pool and pull
it was
weeds
your
on a
job.
Saturday morning. Pull weeds and mow the lawn in Florida in July. Yeah.
Sounds
Anyway,
too comfy, but-
that sounds a lot like when I was a kid. We used to have to work. Encourage your teen to find a part-time job. Okay. Find ways for them to nurture and lead. Consider an exchange program or somewhere they can go, a summer camp, where there is no technology.
Or do something social outside of school.
Bigger thrills in nature is number 6. Bigger thrills in nature. And then, I don't know about this one, take a gap year after high school.
I think it helps them to build up confidence because our oldest son did it because he was unsure about everything, to be honest. And he went to Scotland for half a year, worked in a big company in the production. So he had to work there really and found new friends, had to include himself in a community and find his place there. And the second half, he did the same here in Weimar, had to find a job and had to find his place there. So I think he basically learned so much in this year about
a growing
self-confidence,
experience, right? Exactly. Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah, great. But these tips are actually good tips. I mean, as you said, in Europe, the people are allowing, or in Germany, I would say, the kids a bit more than the American people often. So
especially in the smaller cities, a city like Weimar.
This is what we experience too. But still, it's a good reminder to let them. And people tend to protect the kids, what we say in daily life, a lot.
Right.
And
and all this socializing they do over the smartphone, they can do in real life.
Meet
with
meet with friends.
Talk to your friends and don't write. Yeah, it's so easy to meet in the city center.
Right.
And I mean, use your smartphone to set up a time and a place where you meet. But besides that, just leave it on your desk and just go outside and meet the people in the real world.
Right.
Yeah.
So Kindertag last Friday, I sent the boys out. My wife was volunteering her time, and I sent the boys out. I just couldn't take it anymore. No, I'm kidding. But I sent the boys out. I knew there was an event in town, so they went into town and they hooked up with one friend, and then they found two more, and then they found another one, so there was 6 of them, and they had a great time just adventuring around town.
And then they come back and they talk it out.
Oh, absolutely! They actually
and so,
they came back to the square where we live and actually played football together out there, and they had an impromptu dance party at one point that I actually filmed with my smartphone from the window. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, great.
Yeah, thank you. I think we talked about a lot of different topics here, or a lot of different points that are connected to the general topic of smartphone use.
Can I say one thing about the school? I just want to make it very clear that things are better and getting better, and whatever we did to start the year seems to be working, and we just need to be consistent. And
Agree.
Whatever group of parents are listening to this, I want you to know that. I mean, we all agree on that. We've seen a market improvement this year. Yeah,
Absolutely.
A marked improvement.
And I think it's the awareness that was raised by that we communicated about it. A lot of people have read the book, but we found other resources too.
Yeah.
And we talked about it, and we see the seriousness behind it. And I think it's important that we stay connected, that we exchange also opinions and ideas.
Yeah.
And that nobody feels alone with the whole situation.
Right.
And I think it's not about banning
No.
smartphones. It's more about,
It's about
learning
rules.
how to use them in an appropriate way and in a responsible way.
Yeah. And being a role model for your own children and students too.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Chris, would you like to say the last word?
The last word. I spent part of the day today doing the final planning for our trip to Barcelona. I'm taking 23 students to Barcelona with 2 other adults, and I just finished writing the letter to parents that have there are some documents that will go out with that. And in my letter to the parents, I put a note at the bottom regarding smartphones and their use, and there are no rules. I state in the piece that there are no rules on the trip, and what I would like you to do is to encourage your students, your son. I keep saying students, your son or your daughter to use the phones in a moderate way, and not to spend the entire trip looking at what's happening around you through a device, through the screen. Right. So have the experience, live the experience rather than documenting the experience. And this is what I'm trying to do before we go on the trip. And of course, when we go on this trip, this is in late October, I will be reminding students of that as we spend those 6 days together, that they should be living the experience rather than documenting it.
I think it's a wonderful last word.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure.
I hope you had a good time too.
Happy to be the first.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can get invited back.
Depends on the topic.
For sure.
Of course.
Okay, Beate, how will we go on with Taboo Talks?
I would say we also have to thank you, our colleague Tim Wojcik, for
yes.
setting up the technique for us, because we're using new microphones.
Completely new devices.
Yes, so a special thank you here. We try to continue with our podcast every other month, and the month in between the podcast, we try to set up parent meetings, and everyone is welcome. There will be invitations where you can sign up to the topics, and that's our plan for this new school year.
Genau. And I guess either straight after the holidays or maybe even at the end of this week, we will release the new topic and then let you know when we will meet.
I can't wait to hear what it is.
Have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.